Order. I'm now delighted to call, to make his maiden speech, Mr. Matt Weston.
Well, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am grateful for the opportunity to make my maiden speech in this important debate. Although I have spoken several times already in the Chamber, questioning the Prime Minister and other government ministers, this is indeed my formal introduction to the House. The past 5 months have been extraordinary, and it is a great honour for me to represent Warwick and Leamington, a constituency that also includes the town of Whitnash and a number of villages as well. I wish to place on record my thanks to them. I'd also like to thank my predecessor, Chris White, for the work he did as a constituency MP, and specifically his support for the charitable sector and the local games industry. He served the community well, and I wish him well, and it is work that I will most definitely build on. It is a happy coincidence that my maiden speech should coincide with the news, published yesterday in The Independent and by the BBC, that Leamington has been declared the happiest town in the UK. Delightfully, the survey that led to this finding was conducted after 8th of June, which doubtless explains everything. My constituency isn't only the happiest place in the UK. Apparently, it was one of the first provincial towns in England to possess the other key attribute of happiness, a good range of Indian restaurants. You don't need to take my word for it. Whilst a predecessor, Sir Anthony Eden, liked to quote from Shakespeare, in this instance, I'm going to quote from the historian Lizzie Collingham, author of A Definitive History of Curry. Leamington was one of the first provincial English towns to have a selection of Indian restaurants. The area's very proximity to Coventry and Birmingham, where many of Britain's Bangladeshi and Pakistani immigrants found work in the car industry, made it, where Indian food is concerned, one of Britain's pioneering towns. It still is. As if to underline this, one of our very many local establishments was proclaimed winner of the Midlands Curry House of the Year and shortlisted for the national awards. So none of you should need any inducement to visit the locality, and you will be most welcome. But good eating is not all it has to offer. My constituency has been home to such luminaries as Joseph Arch, a 19th century pioneer in unionising agricultural workers and in championing their welfare. Arch also agitated for the widening of the franchise, ambitions that were to some degree fulfilled in the 1884 Parliamentary Reform Act. In the ensuing 1885 general election, Arch was returned as the Liberal MP, well, we can all make mistakes, for North West Norfolk, making him the first agricultural labourer to enter the House of Commons. My constituency was also home to Randolph Turpin, who was considered by some to be Europe's best middleweight boxer of the 1940s and 50s, and went on to become the undisputed middleweight champion of the world in defeating no less than Sugar Ray Robinson. And it was home to Sir Frank Whittle, one of Britain's greatest inventors, the creator of the jet engine, and indeed once, to my right honourable friend, the member for Chesterfield, the as yet unknighted Toby Perkins. Warwick, famous for its glorious castle, the seat of the legendary kingmaker Guy of Warwick, the medieval county town for a shire that once included both Birmingham and Coventry. Today that would be some county. Leamington, its noisy neighbour, perhaps now the happiest town in the UK, but certainly not favoured by the late John Betjeman in his poem Death in Leamington. Fortunately, Betjeman saved his greater wrath for elsewhere, famously inviting friendly bombs to rain down upon a different town. In fact, despite being a major manufacturing centre, the constituency was not the victim of significant bombing in the Second World War, unlike neighbouring Coventry, sadly. But during the war, it was the seat of an important team of camoufleurs, artists and engineers, who played a leading role in developing the art and science of camouflage. It is interesting that one of the constituency's most significant contributions to the defence of our country then was through design. And it is design and innovation that permeates the recent history of our towns. In the post-war period, the legendary Donald Healey set up his car business on the Emscott Road in Warwick, which went on to produce some of the finest sports cars the world has ever seen. Not far away, Sir Malcolm Sayer was designing the E-Type Jaguar. I'm proud of my constituency's impressive past contributions to design and technology and its continuing role in developing innovative technologies of all sorts. This continues to this day with the world-leading Warwick Manufacturing Group, part of Warwick University, and its collaboration with industry, government and other universities in developing battery cell technology, new materials and digital applications. It is no surprise then that what is still referred to as the gaming industry finds itself home here. With Dundee, it leads the industry with more than 50 local businesses, employing 2,500 people and generating £188 million turnover, and is about to grow exponentially. I'm proud that it is very much leading the revolution in not just virtual reality, but in augmented reality. I can honestly say that I have seen the future through a headset. This relative economic buoyancy is exactly that, relative. And it has been dependent on the single market and the customs union, together with our openness to attract the best in the world. Football clubs, such as my beloved Arsenal, have benefited similarly. Warwick and Leamington are exceptionally diverse, international and multicultural community. Engineers, designers, academics, and working people of all sorts from Europe and around the world have made the area their home. And as Leamington's proud restaurant history reminds us, it has also long been home to distinguished communities originating in the Indian subcontinent who have and continue to play an important role in the economic and cultural life of the West Midlands. By way of example, our magnificent Gurdwara is now celebrating its 50th year. This openness and diversity explains in part my constituency's openness to international business and migration. In the EU referendum, it voted Remain. Since the vote, residents and representatives of Warwick University, Jaguar Land Rover and other businesses have consistently voiced their concerns to me about the impact of Brexit. They tell me they simply want clarity and certainty, and urgently. Economic matters of critical concern in their planning. They expect government responsibility, not party infighting. I am confident that they would agree with me. No deal, no way. They are right to worry. This prolonged lack of clarity over the post-Brexit landscape on the British economy is an issue for the majority of my constituents. Some have already voiced their concerns about potential exclusion from the EU's data protection framework, which would impede the continued flow of data with EU and EEA states, without which businesses and the economy will suffer, as we are hearing. The Lords Select Committee on the European Union itself states that we are facing a dangerous cliff edge in this regard. Data is critical in our society and for our businesses, but it needs strong safeguards. I would echo the words of the Right Honourable Member for Cardiff West, in particular in terms of data for the younger generation. It is interestingly viewed as a data commodity, and we must not allow our young people be viewed as a commodity. My constituents are already noting Brexit's impact on the region's ability to attract and retain the talented, skilled workers on which the region relies, and they are worried about the continuing weakness of the economy overall. At present, the economy is extremely fragile and vulnerable to currency fluctuation and interest rate changes. Since 2015, we have witnessed a surge in unsecured household debt, which has reached levels not seen since 2007 to 8. Consumption growth for nearly a decade, the sole driver of the UK economy, is faltering. This is in part because much of that growth was driven by £35 billion windfall that households gained through PPI repayments. That is some economic stimulus by any measure. This short-term windfall effect is now tailing off. Since 2011, this extraordinary one-off cash injection has helped fund, for example, higher retail car sales and new kitchens, but for little longer. Since April 2017, car sales have been falling, as good an indicator as any that consumer confidence is declining significantly. In the UK, investment growth, the real driver of wealth, has failed to return after the financial crash of 2008. But only here. In all other developed nations, growth now exceeds the UK. Like so many of the government's claims, assertions about conservative economic competence have proven to be ill-founded. UK debt has continued to rise. The government has failed to meet its own economic targets. Real wages have fallen by 15% for many in the public sector, or been stagnant for most. CPI inflation is rising and will soon exceed 3%. Household budgets are being truly squeezed. Sterling has fallen by up to 20%. Personal unsecured debt, in contrast, has skyrocketed. Individually, these elements would be concerning enough. Together, they augur serious concern. At the same time, the cost of housing is rocketing. In my constituency, average rents have increased by 26% in the last 6 years. In the last 10 years, only 50 council homes have been built in the area, while we have 2,400 people on the housing waiting list. Last year, 705 people applied as homeless to the local authority, a 130% increase on 2010, compared to a 29% increase nationally over the same period. And there are 3,600 people regularly using our food banks. We have several night shelters in our towns, and in recent months, the numbers attending have doubled. Their work is increasingly important, and I want to place on record my thanks to Margaret, Chris, Susan and Vishal and all the other volunteers. Quite simply, the housing market is broken. And as confirmed by the Prime Minister, not known for her Marxist principles, the energy market is also broken. As with so many government announcements these days, it is little too late. Energy is ripe for revolution, and it is vital that we take this opportunity to democratise energy. It will bring prosperity to all, as well as address the urgent crisis of climate change. In his own maiden speech in 2010, my predecessor stated that Warwick and Leamington had excellent frontline services. He was right. In 2010, we did indeed have excellent frontline services. 7 years on, we do not. We have lost police. Indeed, we've lost the police station in Warwick. We've lost teachers. We've lost full-time firefighters. We've lost health professionals from the NHS. Many are demoralised. I won't continue because you all face the same reality in your own constituencies. So what can we do? Well, the International Monetary Fund has one suggestion: rebalance the tax system. A report just published by the IMF finds that higher income taxes for the rich would help reduce inequality without having an adverse impact on growth. So perhaps implementing some of the Labour Party's policies would be a good start to getting us onto a more secure economic footing as we face the enormous disruption of Brexit. Maybe that's an announcement for next week. My constituents, whether residents or businesses, need now more than ever a strong government ready to protect jobs, to deliver a shared prosperity and enable all to flourish. Above all, I will speak for them. This is the vision I will represent in Parliament. Thank you for your attention.
Vicky Ford.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would like to start by congratulating the honourable member for Warwick and